Rugby Championship 2023, folks, is getting underway this weekend from Pretoria. It's the Boks taking on the Wallabies. It's Eddie Jones back in charge. It's the Boks with their dual squad system. Lots to talk about. We'll go through the squads themselves. We'll go through the recent history and some predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. The recent history has been, interestingly, Australia's way. Of the last 5 games, we've got 3 Australian wins. However, we've not played a game between South Africa and Australia in South Africa since 2019. All the other games have been in Australia, so you kind of got to take that into account when you're looking at the recent history between these two sides. Australia kind of won the 3 games in the middle. South Africa bookended the last 5, winning the one at Joburg back in 2019, 35-17. So that's the last result in South Africa was pretty resounding. The most recent result at the Sydney Football Stadium was also pretty resounding, 24-8. But then Australia won the 3 in the middle. But yeah, it's good to have a kind of regular rugby championship with proper, albeit the abridged version, proper home and away after so many years of kind of COVID disruptions. For the South Africans, I mentioned that they have taken this kind of dual squad approach. And Rassie and Jacques Nienaber were kind of asked, like, are you disrespecting the Australians by sending guys like Malcolm Marx, Ebenezer Makazole Mapimpi, Damon Delinde, Faf de Klerk, Cheslin Colby, sending all these guys to New Zealand directly? Like, by not playing these guys against, and there's other guys as well, by not playing these guys against the Wallabies, are you disrespecting the Wallabies? And their answer was an emphatic no. In fact, we are showing respect for the competition, which I thought was a pretty good line. Because they said, like, look, we don't want to play here, jump on a plane the next day to New Zealand, arrive in New Zealand like on a Tuesday, have only 1 training session, and then be kind of, struggling to field a competitive side against New Zealand. So we want to have 2 competitive games, so we've essentially had to take this approach, which I think has an air of legitimacy about it, man. I mean, the last time the Boks did that, it had a pretty good result for them. So, if it's working, why not go with it? For the squad that has actually been named initially, and in the picture, it's going to show Oxenchair loose head, but he has had to pull out with a pectoral injury, I think it was, and they said he's going to be out for a few weeks. So Stephen Kitshoff, who was initially supposed to be on the plane to New Zealand, will pack down at loose head alongside Bongi and Mbonambi and Frans Malherbe. And that's a pretty tidy looking front row. I think if you're a South African fan, you'd be pretty confident how these guys are going to go up against the Wallabies front row. Just that they'll be looking to get on top, absolutely, at scrum time. They'll be looking to make their physical presence felt. Jean Kleyn and Marvin Orie, that's your locker duo. That's one area that's looking kind of less experienced than if it's like, Lutiacher and Ebenezer. But Marvin Orie, for the Stormers, I thought has genuinely been a top physical presence. And then Kleyn and, is it Kleyn or Clean? Kleyn? Someone gave me a tip on the pronunciation, but I can't remember off the top of my head. He's been in top form for Munster as well. You don't get this kind of selection for the Springboks by chance. So he seems chuffed to be playing for the Boks. He talked about how it was an honour to play for Ireland, but it's obviously something different to play for South Africa. And I believe him when he says that, man. That's just kind of a natural statement for mine. So we'll be keen to see how he goes in his Springboks debut, although not his Test debut. Van Staden, Du Toit, and Vermeulen, that is your back row. Vermeulen is captain in the absence of Kolisi. Remember, Kolisi is travelling to New Zealand, but he's not going to play because he's still injured. But they talked about Vermeulen's experience and kind of being a cool head to lead the pack, and I believe that as well. Du Toit is going to be looking to make Quade Cooper's life miserable, I would imagine, with his work rate, and then Van Staden will be a poacher over the ball. For the backs, Reinach and Libbok, that's 9-10. Remember, Pollard being injured means Libbok has to step into the breach, and I don't know, man, I'm pleased. We know Pollard's the business, so Manie Libbok had a bit of time at the end of the year last year for him to have a home game at Loftus, in Springboks colours. I think this is going to do him wonders. Like, if the Springboks need to have Manie Libbok running the show at 10 in a World Cup, like a game like this is going to be experience, that's going to put him in good stead, basically. And Reinach, an experienced guy to have inside. So I reckon it's going to work out well in the long run. But we'll see how he goes, because the one thing about Libbok is, he's got the talent, but he can be a little bit inconsistent. Esterhuizen and that's your 12-13 combo. You still feel like Dale India and Arm is the preferred combo. Esterhuizen, when he plays for Quins, he looks amazing. I kind of want to see him replicate a little bit of that form. Maybe having Libbok at 10 will actually facilitate that a bit better. And then the wings, Arendse on the left, Moodie on the right, and then Roux is at fullback. So Roux will also be a kind of steadying influence in terms of the playmaking options as well. Moodie with his height and his gas will certainly prove to be a threat if the Boks decide to put boot to ball. And then Arendse with that footwork has got an absolutely amazing try-scoring run at test level. So, yeah, despite the fact that there's talk about this being like a B-side, I think you'd be pretty happy with the way the side looks, man. It's a pretty strong-looking team. Then you got Dweba on the bench. If he comes on to get half an hour or so, he needs to have that step up at test level for sure. Thomas, Toit, Vincent, Koch are proc replacements. Snyman is there on the bench, thank goodness. And please, I still am just like praying to the rugby gods to keep him fit. Like, don't let him fall on any part of his body with any kind of twisty angle, or like just let the guy stay fit. You could almost get him to play 10 if he's fit. Goodness gracious me. But yeah, he's there alongside Evan Roos and Dion Fourie. So it's 6 forwards on the bench. And then Grant Williams and Damien Willems are the only 2 back replacements. Hopefully Williams gets on and is able to put on those jet shoes. And Willems, the good thing about him being there is he kind of covers that Frans Staden role of being able to cover half the back line, doesn't he? So there you go. That is your Springboks squad. As I mentioned, a lot of these guys who are not selected are on a plane to New Zealand to kind of get themselves settled in and acclimatized for the game in the second round. If you guys want to get remember that alternate jersey from the Springboks last year? Level Rugby still got it on sale. Just FYI, I'll put a link down in the description to that one. Funnily enough, they still have stock, although I think it was pretty decently discounted. Seems like it didn't sell out. For the Aussies, with a new coach Eddie in charge, they have made a few changes which maybe are a little bit less familiar from what we're used to. Some of you Springbok fans may not be familiar with some of the guys who are lined up in the squad, basically, because if you haven't seen Super Rugby, there's certainly a few new faces. The front row is pretty familiar with Slipper, Parecki, and Alatoa. Now, Slipper has got a little bit of a question mark about him. Likewise, remember Ox missed out at Loosehead. Well, Slipper may end up missing out. He's apparently got a wee niggle with his knee. So if he ends up not being fit, then he'll have to drop out at the last minute. But he is named co-captain, and he is starting in the number 1 jersey. There's no Tupou. He is apparently not ready to go yet. Remember, he's missed pretty much the entire Super Rugby season with injury. So Alatoa is your starting tight head prop. The 2 locks, Nick Frost and Will Skelton. That's some beef. Those are both pretty big guys. It's not that often that you go up against a South African second row and I think we got these guys in the beef. Well, Will Skelton there especially, and Frost is no small fry. These are both big units, so they'll be looking to add some weight on at scrum time and try to disrupt at line-out time as well. And then the loose forwards, Tom Hooper is getting his debut, Michael Hooper and Rob Valtini. And if you don't know Tom Hooper, he's no relation to Michael Hooper, although apparently Michael Hooper's son's name is Tom, but he's not the son of Michael Hooper. He's kind of a lock loose forward who plays for the Brumbies. He's just under 2 meters tall, so he's also a pretty big dude. And when Eddie was asked, why did you pick him, and he basically just said something like, "I get stuck in." That's basically it. He just wants a guy who's gonna smash people. Yeah, high work rate. That's what Eddie loves. Michael Hooper's the other co-captain at 7. We all know all about him. And then Rob Valtini at number 8 had a cracking season for the Brumbies, ball carrying, tackling the house down. So, yeah, it's a good-looking forward pack from the Wallabies. I mean, they're going to have to be good at Pretoria, but yeah, that's the forward pack. Nick White and Quade Cooper, that's an experienced 19 combo, and they talked about bringing Quade Cooper back in. Remember, he's been out for a wee while when he injured himself in this competition last year, so that's why he gets the nod ahead of Carter Gordon, who was on the bench. Reece Hodge and Len Ikitau is maybe a surprise midfield. You'd think Karevi, but Karevi's another one who's not had a lot of game time. I think they said he's only started training in the last 4 weeks, so he's not 100%. So Reece Hodge is named at 12, and they kind of alluded to the fact that at altitude, with a huge boot that Reece Hodge has got, that might come in handy. Ikitau is another one who's been playing the house down for for the Wallabies or for the Brumbies at Super Rugby level. Him and are legit two of the most talented playmaking 13s in the world right now. So that's going to be a good battle in itself. Corambetti and Vunivalu are the wings, and then Tom Wright is at fullback. So Vunivalu gets his starting debut for the Wallabies. Remember, he's a rugby league convert, and Eddie was talking up his ability in the air, which is going to be important, you'd think, with some aerial ball coming his way, and his gas. So we'll see how he goes. And him and Corambetti, that's an all Fijian wing duo, and pretty attack minded. So we will see also how Tom Wright goes under his high balls. But bench wise, Ulisse, Gibbon, and Nongor. That's your front row replacements. Nongor will be getting his debut. He's been doing all right for the Reds this year. Richie Arnold, brother of Rory, and equally as tall. I think they're twins, right? So he's another big unit. They've picked some big locks for this game. He'll be getting his debut. Pete Samu is there, and then backs-wise, Tate McDermott, Samu Karevi, and Carter Gordon. Carter Gordon is potentially the next kind of big thing for the Wallabies at 10, if he can get some game time either before the World Cup or potentially next year. But he's looked really good in a Rebel side that hasn't looked that flash. So those are your two lineups. Let us know what you reckon about the two squads and which one on paper looks better. Now, I mentioned the recent record is going in Australia's way, despite the fact that we do have 4 of the 5 games played in Australia. The average score, though, is actually 24-22 to South Africa, and the last time they played at Pretoria, it was 18-10 to South Africa, but that's way back in 2016. The Wallabies have never won at Pretoria, so they kind of are up against it. Predictions-wise, it's the Boks who are favourites, kind of not surprisingly. The bookies are saying by 7 points, and the Rugby Forecast algorithm is saying by 16 points. So the Wallabies are predicted to be big-time underdogs in this one. If you know your predictions, there is a Super Brew pool for 2 Cents Rugby down in the description as well. It is on Saturday, July 8th. Loftus first fouled. 5:05 local kickoff, which is like 3 in the morning for those of us in NZ, but I'll be getting up to watch it. New Zealander Ben O'Keefe is the referee. I know Springbok fans don't mind old Ben O'Keefe because Ben, B-O, and then K for Keefe, Bok. There's a Bok connection with old Ben O'Keefe. So there you go. You guys let us know your thoughts on who you reckon might get this one done. If you're looking to kill a bit of time between now and the kickoff, and you sit down with a beer or a brandy, check out me going to get a beer at the Beer Museum in Wuhan, China. That was back in April. Did a video for it. I trust you. If you're thinking Beer Museum, this place was something very different. Let's just put it that way. Unexpected result to visiting a beer museum. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See ya.